Hello and welcome to How to Get Better at Enrolling New Clients. This is an all-new webinar. This is the second one, and we're going to get started in a moment. So we'll just wait, give it because it's 12 o'clock. We'll just keep people till 12:02, and then we'll make a start. Okay, so let's make a start then. So you're very welcome to how to get better at enrolling new clients. I started coaching in 1994, a long time ago, when I was managing a team of about 20 people, I think, and I figured out that I needed to coach them in order to get better results. And then in 1999, I formed an NLP training company. I trained 150 NLP practitioners and coached quite a few people as well. And then I sort of figured out, okay, I'm running this training and coaching business. What I need to learn now is marketing. So I started learning marketing, and I set up a digital agency. 1st of March 2016, and we specialize in marketing for trainers, coaches, consultants, and tech businesses. So if you're a training coach, consultant, or tech business, you're definitely in the right place. And when I formed Digital Freelance, one of the first member of my team was Connie, who joined on the 1st of June 2016. So she's been here all the while, and she's also on the call. So I'm going to introduce you to Connie, and she will explain what her role is.
Hi, thank you, Graham. So as Graham was saying, I've been working at Digital Freelance for 5.5 years. Back when I was in my undergrad at Sussex University, studying marketing and management. And so my background is in digital marketing and analytics. And today I'm going to be taking care of the chat. So there will be some time for questions at the end, where you will be able to mute yourself if you want to ask any questions. But if at any point you have anything that you want to say, you have any questions, pop them in the chat. I will be monitoring it, making sure that I respond to all of you.
Brilliant. So, and the thing I should have said, which I forgot to mention, you will be able to get a copy of the slides. So if you want a copy of the slides, just put your name and say slides, please, in the chat, and we'll make sure that you get a copy of the slides from the presentation. So without further ado, that's all about us. Tell us a little bit about you. Introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do? What do you want to learn from the webinar? That will help me to understand who's on the webinar, and will enable me to tailor the examples to your specific goal or problem. So go ahead, type away. Okay, so I guess we must have shy people, or are you typing?
I think there's
oh, cool.
Probably need a couple more seconds. There you go. I'm really sorry if I pronounce these wrong. So Sigwand is an independent, and he really wants to learn more about LinkedIn.
Brilliant.
How to build long-term relationships without coming across as pushy. So,
brilliant.
Perfect.
You're definitely in the right place. We're definitely going to cover that today. Okay, brilliant. So So let's move on. So some of the things that I've observed, we've worked with, I don't know, probably hundreds of trainers, coaches and consultants in my, how many years is it? 17 years? No, more than that, 27 years. So some of the things that I've observed is a lot of coaches, trainers and consultants, so they're great at achieving results for their clients, but they struggle to acquire new clients. They're very confident when delivering their programs, but they're not really secure. In fact, they're quite insecure when enrolling clients into the programs. And even though they're highly qualified and skilled, they don't want to be too pushy in sales. It's almost like they hold back on the skills that they have when it comes to enrolling. So the question we're going to try and answer in the next, it'll take probably 20, 25 minutes, is what if you could use your professional skills more effectively in the context of enrolling people so you can create more impact and more value. So if that's what you're interested in, you're definitely in the right place. So let's proceed without further ado to the agenda. So we're going to cover three things in the agenda. The first thing is framing an enrollment conversation. This is really, really important, and it's often where people kind of tense up, or the thing that you want to avoid when the person that you're talking to is to have them go into what's called crocodile brain, which is like the fight, flight, fear response, freeze response. So you're going to make the enrollment conversation nice and friendly, nice and warm, nice and open, like non-threatening, if that makes sense. I'm going to show you how to do that in a moment. The next thing is to know that you're using all your skills in enrollment as much as you would if you're actually delivering the program. So we're going to give you a kind of a reframe to help you do that. Then we're going to go through a step-by-step process to sign up new coaching, training or consulting clients without being pushy or salesy. This is a proven process. We have used it for the last 5 years. We've refined it over that time, so we know that it works. And I'll be highlighting some key distinctions, as we go through. So this is step one, how to frame an enrollment conversation. And framing is largely about mindset. So before the session, what we recommend is that you get really clear on your solution frame and consider carefully what problems you solve and what goals you can help people to achieve, and be as specific and clear as you can. So the opening frame that we use is how can I help, or how can we help, which is nice and friendly. And typically the person will give the information about their goals and about their problems as a response to that question. You may want to have some supplementary questions, but I normally find that one is enough to get the information that I need to start the process, which we'll get onto shortly. At the end of the conversation, the key skill is to be silent. And a lot of people, when they're enrolling, kind of overtalk. They kind of don't let the person process the information that they've been given. So while you're being silent, just listen and observe carefully what's going on with the person. I wouldn't leave the silence for too long, but it's okay to leave the silence while they process the information that you provided. I'll give you some more points on that as we go through. Listen and observe carefully is important because some of the response that you get will be in words or in language, and the others will be non-verbal. So the person will also speak with their body as well as speaking with their words. So that was step one. That's the framing. Step two is to know how to know you're helping people to enroll them in your program. I found this quote by Seth Godin really, really helpful. You can read it. I'll read it out for you. So it says, perhaps instead of talking about prospects and customers, we could call them your students instead. And a student-mentor relationship is inherently different to a salesperson-prospect relationship. My own personal belief is that communication is only possible between equals, so I treat everyone as an equal to me. And I also expect that I can learn as much from the student as the student can learn from me as the mentor. It's a really useful frame, and it takes away the kind of arm wrestling approach to sales, which many salespeople seem to use, or the If I talk enough, the other person won't realize that I'm selling to them. Neither of them work particularly well. So we like to consider enrollment as a student-mentor relationship, where the person enrolling is the student, and me doing the enrollment is the mentor in that context. Or in your context, you'd be the mentor, and the person you talk to would be your student. This is a metaphor. It doesn't literally mean that you have to call them student. It's a metaphor. So that's step 2. So the key part of all this is to find the transformation. Most coaches, trainers, and consultants are doing some kind of transformative work. That's what makes you a trainer, coach, or consultant, which means you have a problem and a solution. And then the gap between the problem and the solution is where you can sell or enroll the person to solve that problem. What I found is that people generally fall into 2 categories. Either they're very good at specifying the problem, but not so good at specifying the solution, or for coaches, they're very good at specifying the goal. They're very goal-oriented, but they're not very good at specifying the problem sometimes. So we've got a specific tool that we use called statement of value, which I'm going to take you through in a moment, which will enable you to identify the transformation that you offer and create a gap between the problem and the solution, which you can fill with your offer, which I'm going to show you how to do as we go through this. What I found is after you've done this a few times, I've done probably hundreds of these, definitely hundreds, you start to see patterns emerge. And I'll point some of those patterns out to you as we go along. Once you've got the patterns, then you can create your own template for the transformation that you provide, which is your before and after. And we literally go through this in a strategy session. The way that we do it is we have an initial conversation, it takes about 20 minutes to identify if we're a good fit or not. If we're not a good fit, we'll say, no, we're not a good fit. And then refer them to some other person or to another one of our offers. But assuming they are a good fit, we then do a strategy session, which we get paid for. And one of the steps we do in the strategy session is to go through the transformation in their language, not in my language, in their language. I don't mean non-English, I mean the language that they would use to describe their problem and the solutions. That's find the transformation. We use the statement of value method to identify the transformation. What I'm going to do on the statement of value method is I'm going to talk you through the theory of it, then I'm going to talk you through a practical example. This is Jeffrey Kiplinger. He coaches and mentors life science entrepreneurs in Washington State to scale their business. He's a scientist himself. He ran a life sciences supply company, which he sold, and so now he coaches and mentors other people. So this is the process that we went through with him. And we go through with all our clients, but I'm just using him as an example. So this is the theory. So the statement of value. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows and 2 columns. So column 1, the before, will be what problem does your prospective client have before they engage with your services? And second column, what solution will they have after they've engaged with your services? So that's the before and after for have. Feel will be how do they feel before they engage with your services and after they engage with your services. Average day is what will they be doing. How will the problem be manifesting in their daily activities, and what are they doing to try and find a solution? An average day is how much better, what will they do to fill the time that has been created by them not having to think about the problem because you've solved it for them. If that makes sense, that's quite a powerful way of explaining or describing transformation. And then status, we normally use a metaphor of cars. So before would be a Ford Fiesta, and after would be a Rolls Royce, a Bentley, a Porsche, or a Ferrari, or enter a suitable car of your choice. This is a metaphor, I'm not talking about a physical Ferrari or Porsche. And then good versus evil, we don't tend to use because we focus more on what makes a trainer, coach, or consultant unique. In other words, a unique selling proposition. The good versus evil is used if you're positioning yourself against someone else in the market. So, for example, Paul McKenna used this to position himself against Weight Watchers, who were the incumbents in the market. And their basic model is count your calories, get weighed every week in front, or every couple of weeks in front of your peers, and have a public humiliation if you put weight on. Paul McKenna said, "Oh, there's a better way of doing this." That is evil. The good way of doing it is to work on your mindset. So that's a run through the statement of value in theory. In practice, so this is Jeffrey Kiplinger. His business is called, just move this out of the way, is called Cohere Business Strategies. And so he is marketing to, as I said, to a life sciences entrepreneur who's already in business. They've got some turnover, but they want to get to the next level, which would be scaling up probably to 7 figures. So before, they have lots of ideas, lots of energy, but very little time because they're busy doing, not knowing what to do first. Everything relies on the owner. They tend to surround themselves with other scientists. They haven't figured out the functional organization. They don't have any systems. They feel overwhelmed and frustrated. And their average day is reacting to whatever is in front of them, what you might call firefighting, I guess, which is a fairly typical situation for a startup to be in. Afterwards, they will have identified the problem with greater clarity. They'll have a clear sense of direction, sense that it's achievable. They'll have a clear path to get to the next level. They'll be confident and happier, moving towards a goal that's set in stone. They'll be managing much better, delegating better because they'll have a team around them, working less reactively, more proactively, able to see return of efforts, and they'll be close to the goal that they'd originally intended, which is normally most of these life sciences supply businesses are lifestyle type businesses, and so they have goals that they want to achieve, but they end up working in the business, going a little bit crazy, if that makes sense, because they're working so hard. And they'll be a successful entrepreneur, and their business works as a system, and you see the returns you'd originally planned. We've been working with Jeff for, I think, about 9 months now. And so if I were to do this now I know a lot more about his business. I know that he has 4 value signals that he measures against, which are systems, sales process, team, finance. Actually, I've got 5 there: finance and personal development. And so I would break this these after steps down into those 4 or 5 categories. So that is that's the statement of value. So really, really useful tool. This. If you take one thing away from this webinar, I would highly recommend that you work with a statement of value. Okay, so that was step 2. So step 3 is the step-by-step process to sign up new coaching, training, or consulting clients professionally. The most important thing when going through this process that we use is to help the the client to make a good decision. So it's all about decision strategy. When I present the steps, it will look as though it's a linear from 1 to 11, but in practice, it's not actually linear because the conversation often jumps around depending on the person who you're speaking to. I definitely don't recommend having a rigid process. You have to follow these steps. But I do recommend tracking where you start, where you end, and where you are at that particular moment, so you can make sure by the end of the session you'll have answers to all these steps, or you'll have been through all these steps, but not necessarily in order, if that makes sense. So here we have the 11 steps. I'm going to go through them one by one. So I'm going to explain as we go along what each of the steps relates to. So the first one is build rapport. I talked earlier about the crocodile brain, or the fight, flight response. you don't want to you don't want to invoke that in the person. You want them to feel nice and calm and relaxed. So typically, we're English, so we talk about the weather. So we start by talking about the weather. How's the weather in Washington State? How was Thanksgiving? All those kind of questions that help to build a relationship with a client and to open up the conversation gradually. And then after a little bit of a preparatory chat, then I would ask, how can I help, or how can we help? And listen to what the person says. And they'll typically describe either the goal that they're seeking or the problem that they have, or sometimes both. So once you can recognize that, that enables you to see, okay, yeah, there is a gap there that I can fill. Sometimes the problem that they perceive they have is not the actual problem, if that makes sense. So sometimes you have to do a bit of root cause analysis or dig a bit deeper to find out what the actual problem is. And sometimes it's useful to have some what I'd call subsidiary questions that you can predefine, so you can kind of ask those questions as you go through. So that's step one. Step two is to quantify the problem. So this could be a tangible quantity. So if you're in business, it might be profit or revenue, cost of goods sold, or it might be on a scale. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how good are you at enrolling, for example, or on a scale of 1 to 10, how good are you as a leader? Or it may be a time frame. When is it a problem? How long has it been a problem? How long will it be a problem into the future? If you're doing something intangible like leadership skills, for example, you may want to have a questionnaire that you would run through that would pinpoint the areas of improvement and existing strengths. It's really important to document this number to give a baseline for the transformation. Step three is by the solution. So this is going through the same steps, whether it's tangible or intangible, and a way of measuring it, documenting it. The difference between step 2 and step 3 is the gap. That is the transformation that the person that you're speaking to is asking for. Step 4 is describe the opportunity or offer. Sometimes this would come later, sometimes it would come earlier, depending on how the conversation is going and what response you're getting. What we strongly recommend is to have a range of different offers with different benefits and price points. Because if the person that you're speaking to only has a budget of, let's say, £1,000 and your price is £2,000, you're either going to get into a negotiation on the price, which we don't recommend at all. Much better to add more value, or to have already predefined a £1,000 product and a £2,000 product, which are different, which offer different benefits. Much better way of doing it. And we found that being upfront about the price points is the best strategy. And a business coach told me a long time ago, never discount, always negotiate on price. Always negotiate, always add value. I can't say I've always adhered to that, but I do my best to add more value, because it makes the transformation better for the person instead of cheaper, if that makes sense. So step 5, this is your avatar or ideal client. Describe who the offer is for and who it's not for. There can be a tendency, particularly in experienced trainers, coaches and consultants. I know that's where I started on my NLP journey back in '98, to think that you can help everybody do everything. And it's not actually true. Even if you can, you need to tailor your offer to the world of the person that you are enrolling, and use their language as much as possible. So the best that you could do this theoretically, and a lot of marketers will teach a theoretical way of doing it based on geography and demographics and psychographics and all that kind of good stuff. What kind of car they drive, give them a name, all that kind of stuff. We found it's much better to look at your existing client base and figure out who are you selling to at the moment. Because it's good to stretch who you're selling to at the moment, but the best starting point is the people that who are already your clients. So that's step 5. Step 6 is utilize your statement of value template to break down the transformation you provide into steps and help the client to complete the information. So that is that's the statement of value that I showed you earlier. We create it into a template that we turn into a PDF and send to the prospective client at the end of the strategy session, which takes about an hour. So we normally allow an hour, maybe an hour and a half, to gather the information, present all this information, work out the statement of value and the transformation, which is very engaging for the prospective client because they're actually involved in specifying the problem and the solution. So you are helping them just by completing the statement of value and identifying the transformation that they want to make, even if they hire someone else to actually do the transformation. Step 7, I think I mentioned, is describe the transformation that you provide in the language of the person you're having a conversation with. So what we do is we structure the case study in line with our enrollment process. So if you look at the enrollment process, that's the theory. If you look at the case study, that's the actual practical application. We do that with case studies, generally in the form of stories. Stories tend to be much more memorable and understandable than or relatable than hard, more rational arguments. So the first case study that I used in this presentation is Jeffrey Kiplinger. The second case study that I'm going to use as we go forward is Vivian Blade. Vivian is a leadership coach in Kentucky. She helps women, particularly who tend to be achieving less well relative to their male peers. She particularly works with female minorities as well, who tend, for various reasons, to be mainly often because they don't understand the system, to be underperforming relative to their male peers. So I'm going to show you how we helped her to do this in a moment. Step 8 is identify and handle objections. We're going to do that in a separate webinar because that's kind of a specialist area in and of itself. Step 9, really important, articulate your USP. Ours is small business marketing with guaranteed results. It took us a long time to come up with that USP, and I haven't found anyone else who claims that. So it is fairly unique, I think. It's really, really important for you to identify your uniqueness, which means you don't have to get into that good versus evil kind of marketing that I talked about earlier, that you focus on the unique transformation that you alone can make. And there will be things about what you do that are unique. It's just a matter of finding them sometimes. So step 10 is outline the plan. Generally what we find is a 90 or 120 day plan is a good starting point. We in our business started at 90, then we moved to 120. You want to make sure that having a plan changes the way that they feel. Many people, there's loads of information out there now. And so for many people, it's not about the amount of information, it's about knowing what to do or where to start. So so by having a plan, it tells the person that you're speaking to where they need to start and what they need to do with a time frame attached. It's really useful that if they have to go and get approval from someone else as well, because you're kind of helping them present your case to whoever is going to do the approving. So this is Vivian's executive leadership program, and it's broken down into 4 phases. The first phase is fairly typical coaching stuff, getting rid of negative self-talk, discovering value, building confidence, all the good stuff that coaches work with, which are really important to make the transformation enduring and lasting. So that's phase 1. She calls it Discovery Executive Leadership Coaching Sessions 1 and 2. Phase 2 is where the 90-day plan refinement comes in, strategy and practice. So this is about the visualization step for her. She describes how to break through the challenges and frustrations during 90 days, and she gives them a roadmap so they know where they're going, which is another key element of this, is to help them know where they're going. The thing that I definitely do not recommend is open-ended consulting or coaching arrangements. It's much better to break it down into chunks, clearly identifiable chunks of time and clearly identifiable chunks of money, because no business likes open-ended commitments in terms of time or money, and ideally quality as well, which is partly why we do the measurement at the start. Phase 3 is achievement and measure success. So this is progress check-ins where Vivian will check that they are doing the action steps that they said they would. And accountability is kind of quite familiar to coaches, trainers, and consultants, but also importantly, celebration. So she can help them give themselves a pat on the back when they do a good job. And then phase 4 is like the wrap up to the first part of the coaching, where she will then map out the next set of development goals, which could be obviously an opportunity to sell another, to enroll in another 90-day program. So finally, step 11, we get to the closing frame, and this is where silence is golden. So it's good to just wait for a few moments. And what you will typically get is that the client will either say, so what's the next step, which is an indication that they're ready to enroll, or I'm talking to a few other people. That's why we send the PDF at the end of the strategy session, so they have something they can refer to. If they talk to 3 people, the likelihood is that they'll remember what the last person said more than the first. That's why it's good to put it in writing. I have a few questions. Obviously, that's the time to answer them. We allow an hour for the first session, and then if we can't get it done in an hour, we then arrange an hour's follow-up session, or half an hour's follow-up session, where we can answer the questions, where we can go through anything that wasn't filled in the first part. And it's important not to put pressure on the time. So you want to give them the time to tell you what they need to tell you, and also to make sure that the plan is robust and that it will work, and that you've got confidence that it will work. The next one is, I don't know if I'll get the results. That's an indication that the case studies were not compelling enough, or were not directly relevant enough to their situation. I need to talk to my business partner, wife, or significant other, advisor, etc. What we advise, if possible, is to get the partner or the wife or the significant other or the advisor actually on the strategy session, or I think some coaches and consultants call it a discovery session, but we call it strategy session. Whatever you call it, it's good to get the other person on there. Otherwise, what we found, if we don't do that, is partway through the project, this person will suddenly pop up and will have a different expectation on what the deliverables are, or what the project is all about. But we're now getting into the realm of handling objections, which we'll do on a separate webinar that will be coming up probably in January. So that was a run through the 11 steps. I just iterate again that those steps are non-linear, so I wouldn't go through them 1 to 11. I would move around them depending on how the conversation goes with the person that you're speaking to. But if you do need help with creating your professional enrollment process to get more leads flowing through, which is we typically specialize on LinkedIn, you can book a 20-minute chat here. I'd love to have a chat with you. There's a link there, and Connie will also put it into the chat so that you can click on that link. And I'd love to have a chat. There's no obligation. The 20 minutes is completely free, and I can answer any questions that you have, or anything you want to discuss on how to apply this to your particular context. And we can often troubleshoot out of those 11 steps, because we're objective and we're kind of looking in from outside which of those 11 steps is not working. So that works really effectively as well. So I'm just going to leave you with a question. Are you ready to design your enrollment process? Cool. So right now it's time for questions. who has questions? I think Connie will unmute you if you have a question.
Yeah, so you can pop it in the chat if you want, or you can unmute yourself and ask away if you prefer it that way.
Sounds like there aren't any questions.
It was just so clear.
All very clear, good.
I think we have a hand raised.
Okay.
From Michael.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me all right? Yep.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can hear you.
Right. Yeah, I was wondering about this unique USP, which is always easy to say.
Yes.
And incredibly difficult to do at times.
Yes.
Just repeat the one that you have for your own business.
Our business is small business marketing with guaranteed results.
Okay, so that's in some ways that's a uniqueness of wordplay as opposed to uniqueness of service, if I put it that way.
No, we have then our. If I can break that down into a more specific form, which is we will guarantee you 4 times return on investment in 6 months.
That's good. No, I think it's one of those areas that's actually quite useful to get examples or ideas of how you go about that process of doing that when you're trying to differentiate yourself.
Yes. I think the answer to it, the way that when I'm talking to a client, the way that I do it is I just ask them to describe what they do. And then from that description, something often leaps out about what they do, which makes it unique, if that makes sense.
Right.
I think that a piece of advice that I would give is not to look for what's unique, because it's like trying to coach yourself. It's virtually impossible because you're only working with what's already there. You need some external input, and typically it comes from a story that someone will tell. So if I give you an example, one of our clients, Terry Denisha, is an insurance broker in Bakersfield, and so you can imagine, insurance brokers are pretty well similar, but his USP is our service is second to none. Right. And literally, he's in the office from 7:30 in the morning to 7:30 at night. He promises to answer the phone within 20 minutes, which is not a thing in his industry, if you see what I mean. Typically, people are waiting weeks for responses. So he's based his USP based on service. If it's for consultants, typically it's something in their experience that other people won't have experienced. Mm-hmm. So a friend of mine who was a business coach had successfully exited and sold a business. So I said, make yourself the exit specialist for people who want to retire happy, which he did. And he was able to get clients because his story supported that, if that makes sense. If you can't really make yourself unique, you can only really make yourself unique from an experience that you've had, I think, if that makes sense. That's how I would view it. Otherwise, it is kind of hyperbole or marketing hype, which the most important thing in all marketing, which I didn't say at the beginning, but I do genuinely believe it, is to be genuine.
Yes.
Because if it's just like some kind of fluff that people use to sell, that will unfortunately manifest itself in high refund rates and high, buyer's remorse kind of thing. So it's about being our one is 4 times ROI in 4 to 6 months. If you don't get it in 4 to 6 months, we'll keep going until you do at no additional cost.
Right. Okay.
So we back it up. If you say it's not just wordplay, we'll back it up with action, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Okay, it's a pleasure. Any other questions?
Yeah, more of an observation, really. I've used LinkedIn for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And spent a considerable amount of money on generating contacts.
Yes.
And I have a very large number of connections, with all of which seem to be people who want to sell me something.
Yes.
And I do have a much smaller cohort of peers, which is useful. Yes. I can honestly say I don't think I've ever, maybe one or two times, had any direct business through that marketing route. And the challenge seems to be when you're introduced, I have no problem with making contact and people accepting connection requests and engaging with them. That all works perfectly well. And I've been on various coaching sessions to work out how to do that. Even automating some of that, which also works fairly well. Yes. The problem comes when you make contact with somebody, because to engage somebody to give you advice, you have to first of all admit you've got a problem. Yes. And the vast majority of business owners or medium-sized business, perhaps directors, they are not going to share their heartfelt problem with somebody they just met.
No, true. But you have to do it slowly. You can't go straight in and say, "So what's your problem?"
So how can I help it? I use something very similar in face-to-face meetings. But I just say, "Tell me what's pleasing you about your business, what's good, and then tell me what's not so good." Try and tease out where the issues. But I have a language challenge in identifying, and I'm basically a digital process specialist. So I analyze the business, and then I look at ways to improve performance by applying technology to it. And that's the end of a conversation with somebody who's got a car hire business.
I get it. But what if you were to take it down a chunk in terms of make it more specific to the car industry, and you said, I can help you make sure that no one ever comes to have a service and the part's not in stock. That would apply to them, but digital process specialist sounds a bit too generic to me.
It comes from having 30 years experience of managing operations in medium or large companies.
I understand. I totally understand. No, I mean, my background was big companies, so I totally understand.
Although I've worked with smaller companies. I worked on a project for a company during the pandemic, which was interesting because I never actually met any of them. But I worked for them for a year. Yes. And I rolled out an enterprise resource planning system across all their about 100 staff, and held, did everything except the technical implementation, and that was kind of weird because normally you would have a lot of personal interaction with people to overcome resistance and to get them to buy into using tools and that sort of thing. But to do all that on Zoom was interesting.
I can imagine most of our clients are in the States, so we don't, I say most, they're not now, we're more UK, but there was a time where 80-90% of our clients were in the States, so we never met them. It's all done on Zoom. It's different. Working on Zoom is definitely different. But we have worked with quite a few IT consultants, and we're working with a lady at the moment now who's system architecture specialist and integration. So it may be worth having a short chat just to see if we can give you some pointers or help you articulate a little bit more precisely. If that would be helpful to you, I'd be happy.
Yeah, it's quite interesting that there's a European funded program at the moment called Go Digital,
Right.
It's not a national one. These are regional, and so that's run by our local county council. I managed to get accepted onto the program, and that's working really well. They provide applications from people for advice.
Okay.
And that covers all of that initial contact stuff. And at the end of it, you know, the vast majority of them then engage me to deliver what we've identified as a problem. So it is that top of the funnel bit that's extremely difficult, particularly so a young chap running a very small engineering company, and what he really needs is a job control system, because if he carries on doing the way he's doing it, when he's got 6 staff, he won't be able to manage,
I get it.
and he'll be in crisis mode. So, and he accepts that. But if I rang him up or contacted him on LinkedIn, he wouldn't articulate that as a problem. And I think that's my biggest challenge is getting to the state, the response to the how can I help bit. But
yeah, I understand. But I'm just going to quickly answer that now, because I know Reed's got a question and I don't want to run out of time.
No, that's true.
So the way we do that is with content marketing. So there's it's really effective writing short articles or producing videos or case studies that describe the transformation that you can accomplish, to make it more tangible rather than kind of big corporations tend to work in concepts. All business tend to work practically in, tangible. Can I see it, feel it, and touch it? And so articles and videos and case studies are a very good way of making it tangible. Okay, we'll better let Reed have his. I think Reed wants to make a comment, or.
Hi, can you hear me, Graham?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, so sorry I was late. I thought it was at 5 a.m. It's now 4:48 a.m. in California, where I live. I wouldn't have even scheduled to join the webinar if I knew it was at that time. I wake up early, like at 5, but not at 4. But anyway, I would appreciate so much the recording, because I liked what I heard. I got in about 25 minutes after the hour, and I very much liked what I heard. And I was just going to, I think there's 7 people on here, and I assume that they all joined this because they want to sell better over the phone, right? And you remember how we did over at Coach Johnny's, right?
Yes.
Way back when. That's why I met you with the Infusionsoft help that you gave us, which we so much, I especially so much appreciated. But one of the things that's so important, and I can't wait to hear your recording, for me, and I think one of the big reasons for my success is building what I call deep rapport. So it starts with, let's say I'm talking to a man, right? And here's how the usual sales guy does it on the phone. Say, oh, I see you're in Dallas. And the prospect will say, oh, yeah, I've been in Dallas about 5 years. Oh, you must be a Cowboys fan then, right? And, oh, yeah, I follow the Cowboys. They're my favorite team. And then he'll launch right into the presentation, right?
Yeah.
I go way beyond that. Sometimes I'll spend 15, 20 minutes on rapport, seriously, right? Yeah. And one of the things you can do if you want to find out if he has a family or she has a family, instead of just asking them outright, oh, so are you married? Do you have a family? You have kids? Some people find that kind of question intrusive, right? I've had people actually object to that and say, why do you want to know that? This is a business call. All you have to do is say, oh, you're in Dallas. I imagine you'd have some really good schools around there, right? And then they can say, they will either say yes, no, or they don't have kids or whatever, right? But that's how you can lead into that and find out if they have kids. And usually they'll just volunteer it, right?
Yeah. We would call that as being genuine. So talk to them as a human being, not
exactly.
Not prospect. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. If it's a woman and she says, oh, well, I'm just a housewife, my response to that is, well, you know what? You're the mother of your children, right? That's the most important job on the face of the earth, but it's the most unrecognized, and rewarded job. Anyway, I build deep rapport, which makes it so easy to do the rest of the presentation. And it all starts with the question of, so why did you set up this call, Connie? And then I just shut up and listen, and I take notes, right? I prod them. We
start with how can I help? So our approach is ever so slightly different.
Very, very similar, same thing. Just exactly. Let them talk, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Let them talk, take notes. Anyway, that's it. Just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Reed. Thank you. Okay, so I think we managed to finish 10 minutes ahead of schedule, which is good. So I'm sure you're all So if you want to book a chat, feel free. Love to have a chat. No obligation, 20 minutes. I think Connie's put the link in the chat box. If you want the slides, just put slides, please, and we'll send you the slides. And we will send Reed the recording as he was able to join us at the start. So there we go. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us, and hope to see you again soon.